You only.
Okay. Joining me right now, man, is one of the main people behind what I think unquestionably is my favorite horror movie of 2021 right now. And the music and definitely the voice of the main antagonist of said film is a instrumental part of all of that. And the movie I'm talking about is Willy's Wonderland. And with us right now, I have the composer of Willy's Wonderland and the voice of Willy himself. Emoi, how you doing, sir?
Hey, Jimmy. Thank you so much for having me.
Man, I know on your way to this movie, just by checking out your website, you have done a bunch of different music composition for like everything from commercials to corporate videos to other short films. So you have assembled yourself kind of a vast array for your library. You got a large variety of stuff that you have composed. Tell me what got you hooked up with Willy's Wonderland.
Well, so a good friend of mine, Grant Kramer, who was the guy who starred in Killer Clowns from Outer Space. He's Mike Tobacco from Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Can I just show you something?
Well, there you go.
That is signed by him. We had him.
Really? Oh, nice.
Yeah, we had him and Suzanne as a guest at the convention that we are the production team for.
Awesome. Awesome.
I was super stoked about that.
Yeah. No, he's a great guy. So I ended up meeting him about 13 years ago, and it was, I was working at a production studio. He walked in, he had a camera covering half his face, and he was just, I heard his voice for a second, and I go, and I mean, this is how many times I've seen Killer Clowns from Outer Space, right? Just off hearing his voice, I go, wait a second. Are you fucking Mike Tobacco from Killer Clowns from Outer Space? And all of a sudden he just drops the camera, just bright red, and he starts laughing, and we started chatting, became friends. And then we became really good friends. And then, we had talked a few times about me taking a leap into the feature film out of doing, commercial, like you said, commercial videos and all that kind of thing. And, he knew what a fan I was of this genre because I love Killer Clowns so much, and all that kind of stuff. So he goes, dude, I think I got a movie for you, that you're going to be really stoked on. So he sent me the script, and I read it, and I loved it. So I loved the script so much. I called him back and I go, dude, I can't do this movie. Or I said, I don't want to do this movie. I have to do this movie. And he's laughing, and that was it. He brought me on. I did the first thing I did was the birthday song. So that kind of cemented me in, which was great. And so, yeah, that's kind of how it started.
Did they give you any direction as to how they wanted Willy to sound, or did you just come up with that voice on your own?
Well, in the script, Willy didn't actually talk. He was so what happened was when I was writing some of the character songs in the birthday song, actually, I started off with the birthday song. One of the things that I remember from my childhood, did you ever go to like Chuck E. Cheese or any of those places?
Totally.
Yeah. So I one of the things that I remember was always the back and forth banter on stage, right? The animatronics always talking back and forth, and I kind of felt like you had to have that, in the music. So I kind of did this thing where it was like, hey kids, do you know what time it is? It's birthday time, right? And the song starts and it's like, hey Tito, oh yeah, hey you, yeah, blah blah blah, and trying to create this kind of banter back and forth for them, because that was just how it really was. And I was originally I had watched Heather's recent, like right before I read the script, and so I was kind of like going, God, Christian Slater was so talented, man. He was really something. I kind of had this in my head right as I was reading the Willy script, and then on top of that, Lampwick from Disney's Pinocchio was always a big I always loved that character, the red-headed little kid that's it's kind of like, hey, Pinocchio, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. So I kind of, if you take Lampwick and you kind of combine him with Christian Slater, I think you end up with something along the lines of Willy,
That's pretty good. The characters, they're instantly so iconic that this is like people have been comparing it to Five Nights at Freddy's, but I have been telling people it's like Chuck E. Cheese meets the Evil Dead.
Totally.
The characters as they present themselves one by one, each of them. Did you get a look at them or any kind of a concept design of them before you started composing each of their little theme songs?
Yeah, one of the things that they originally sent me with when I started to come on board was a bunch of the artwork and stuff, and the costumes being made, you know, the suits being made and all that kind of stuff. So I definitely got to see some of that, which was really cool. Definitely inspired a lot of it.
And with you getting that concept art, then you know, how much collaboration are you getting with the directors or writer or anybody else when you're composing the theme songs? Like the ostrich, who I was sad he was only in it for so long, because I thought his concept was pretty. I think he was my favorite like character design. But
yeah, he's awesome.
When you're writing these theme songs for each of these characters, are you like sending a rough cut or a first draft to the director and he's sending it back with notes, or how is that process shopped when there's these tracks for such like unique characters?
Yeah, that's definitely pretty much how it worked. I mean, the one thing that was at the beginning, you know, the reason I did the birthday song first was because Kevin wanted to start off with sort of a commercial, which is the commercial at the beginning of the film. I don't know if at the time it was going to be at the beginning of the film, or it was just kind of a mood piece we were going to kind of work on, or maybe it was even going to be a trailer, was going to just be like an old school Willy's commercial or something like that. There were a bunch of different ideas, but he wanted to start with definitely that idea. So it spawned the birthday song / Willy's jingle, which is, you know, the classic birthday song that plays throughout the thing. And then the Willy's jingle is the "We welcome you to Willy's, where everyone's your friend," right? Which would be like more of the commercial track. And then they kind of went in and out of each other. But we started there, and yeah, it would just, when they sent me the picture edited, there were the segments where the characters are interacting on stage, and we would just go back and forth on what we thought they were doing, you know, what we thought they were singing, what needed to happen in that scene, you know, and what it was playing into, what was the next step for them, you know, and all that kind of stuff.
Was there any character song that was particularly more challenging to compose than any of the others?
Six Little Chickens was not the hardest to compose, but the picture had already been edited. And you have this scene where Willy is just up there basically waving his hands around, you know, and these kids are standing in front of him and looking at him. And, you know, I had to come up with something for him to sing. And it was kind of like, well, this is Willy's solo, so it has to be something, you know, it's his solo. What would he sing? What would he sing? So the challenge there was trying to tie together the scenes, of course, before and after. I mean, because right after Aaron gets, you know, stabbed by Nighty Night, right? And so I thought it would be really funny to do something where Willy is actually warning them, like, you just fell into my den. You know, there's 6 little chickens, 4 girls, 2 boys. You know, and then he goes, whoops, 5 little chickens at the end of the line. And right after that, Nighty Night gets him. So that was really fun, but probably the most challenging in the sense of it really had to be quite spot on. And I had to write the music to the movements. So it had to be in tempo with how Willy was moving around and all that kind of stuff. And I tried to get his, you know, it had to lyrically somewhat line up to his voice, you know, right. To his mouth, sorry, his mouth.
Was that going to be a situation where, had you not been able to come up with anything, they were just going to cut that scene, or do you know?
I don't think so. It was in the locked cut. I mean, we definitely had to come up with something. Yeah, for sure. It was the setup for the Nighty Night first kill, which is arguably one of the best kills in the movie, right?
Yeah,
it had to be in there for that to happen.
Did you get to be on set for any of that stuff, like the night?
No, I came on. I came on before they shot to write the birthday song, but I didn't come on to do the rest until after they had shot, and right after that was the pandemic.
Wow.
So I've never even met Kevin, the director, in the flesh.
Wow.
Most of the people I haven't met in the flesh before because it's all been Zoom calls, telephone calls, and all that kind of thing. So that was challenging as well. Very interesting situation.
Yeah, how was that? That's a situation where you not getting that personal connection. I guess it is a win where there's enough tools available for you to be able to compose music in that kind of a setting where you can kind of do it all by yourself. It takes more time, I can imagine, to do it like that, but it is possible for you to do it, which is awesome. But how was that with all this?
It was interesting. It was tough. It does make the process longer, I believe, because you are, where in a perfect world, the director comes and sits behind you, you listen to things, you can tweak things in real time, all that kind of stuff. But in this situation, it was, you come up with something, you have to upload it, you post it, you wait for them to, get their notes and stuff together, Zoom you back, all that kind of stuff. So it does just take a little bit longer. It's a little harder there's a certain energy that you can read off of people when you're in person that you can't, you know what I mean? You just can't get off of a call or a Zoom, I believe. So it was a little bit more challenging for sure. And of course, not being able to bring people into the studio as well was also why I ended up singing on Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes and the Willy's Wonderland theme song and all that other stuff, is because I couldn't get anybody else in to, all the studios were closed. Everything was closed.
Yeah.
Get somebody at another studio besides mine, that was just the way it was. So it was kind of a perfect storm for a very interesting thing, but it was cool. It was cool. I can't complain. It was very cool to be able to do all those things as well. And it was a lot of fun.
The Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes, like the version, like the way that you sang it, the voice that you chose to sing it in and everything, and it's like that build up to this rise of those two final characters, Nick Cage and Willy, finally, it comes down to these two. That whole movie was pretty spot on, but that scene with that music is pretty hysterically awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, we all thought it was pretty funny, in a very cool way. But I was thinking of that voice. I was like, I got to change up the voice here a little bit for Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes. And I was imagining this like bluegrass singer who had these hopes and dreams, and then he ended up having to do kids songs. You know what I mean? So he had shoulders, knees, and toes. Yeah.
The way that you have kind of gotten to progress into feature film, was horror, like when you were starting out with this, have you always been like a horror fan? I know you mentioned Killer Clowns from Outer Space, but like, was horror kind of the first genre that you wanted to break into doing feature film composing to? I know that it was for, being a film student and me and making films and stuff. Like, I knew I always wanted to do a horror stuff more than anything else. So I'm curious with you.
Absolutely. It's definitely genetic. I was helping my dad clean out his storage shed the other day, and I found this arts and crafts box, and I opened it up, and there was this little thing that I made, and it said, hi, I'm Emoi, I'm 7 years old, and my favorite color is black. My favorite pet is a werewolf, and I'm gonna marry Wednesday Addams when I grow up. You know what I mean? Like, and I was just like, and I was reading this, and I was just like, gosh, man, I was even like this when I was freaking 5, or it was just crazy, So, so anyway, yeah, I've always loved horror. Been a huge fan of it. Return of the Living Dead, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, Evil Dead 2, all those movies I grew up watching religiously over and over again, and just always, when I started doing music, this was definitely the world that I wanted to be in. You know what I mean? As far as what I feel like my natural tendency, my natural passion goes to.
Do you have a certain subgenre of horror that you would want to work in? Like, I mean, Willy's Wonderland really kind of checks off the Killer Clowns from Outer Space box. Is there now like one like a zombie or slash?
I love zombies. Love them. Yeah. I'm not so much into like hardcore slashers. I'm not really into like serious gore and blood and guts kind of thing. That's not really my thing. I'm more into the darkly fantastical world of horror, like eerie and beautiful and almost in a dark sort of twisted way. I like the dark comedy, more that kind of thing. And so Willy's is definitely in the world that I love, and some of those other movies as well that I mentioned. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely the anything in that kind of anything like darkly beautiful, wondrous kind of thing I'd be really into as well.
When did you start kind of like figuring out that you wanted to compose music? How old were you?
Well, it was, so I got into music when I was about 5. I started with voice. And from there, I think the next instrument I picked up was guitar. And then, I took that pretty serious. And then I ended up in piano. And I really fell in love with piano. And I always I always thought like, oh, I'm going to have to be a performer probably if I want to make a living doing music, but I had terrible stage fright. Like I just hated performing. And so when I realized that I can sit in a dark room and write music by myself, looking at, like the films that I love and grew up with, I mean, I have such a bond with picture in general. I've always loved movies so much. So it's, as soon as I realized that, I was like, okay, done. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do with my life,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And with doing this film here, were you doing it all virtual? I guess it makes it hard to be able to comment on like what the vibe was like as far as in pre-production and production, because it's kind of hard to get a vibe when you're doing it via Zoom.
I wasn't really there, for most of that part.
But the reception that this thing has gotten, I got to imagine has surpassed a lot of expectation. Like,
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a great little film. I mean, it's a really fun, cool little film. And I know it kind of goes over a lot of people's heads in the sense of, they just can't, they can't really, there's certain people like you and I that relate to films like this, and everybody else who worked on this movie, because it was worked on by a lot of very, very passionate people who understood the genre and knew what they were going for, and really, in my opinion, nailed it, So, and I've heard some things about, I've read some reviews, about Nick where they say like, oh, he was going for a paycheck or whatever. And I'm just like, gosh, man, I must be blind, because I think this is one of his best performances he's ever done. The fact that he doesn't talk shows you like just the subtlety in his character is unbelievable. His looks, his body language, it's unreal. It's unreal. So yeah.
Him on the slot machine is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
Like, the whole way that they've done it, they did that movie up until the point that he's on his own. Like the exchange he has with the tow truck guy, and then Tex.
Amazing. Jed and Tex, they're incredible. You can make a whole movie with just Jed and Tex, like a side story, I mean, they're like a hilarious comedy duo. You know, they're awesome.
But Nick Cage off of those two, like playing off of those two, is amazing.
Oh, totally.
And I don't know, the way that the film comes together. I think the one thing I would do is make the thing longer. To be honest, it was like some of those characters I wish like hung around as much as the Siren Sarah hung around. Like I said, I want to see more of the ostrich.
Totally.
The ostrich was so. The first viewing or the first character to get animated, I guess it doesn't really matter which one it was, but the ostrich just seems like it's the perfect one to be first in the way that he was animated, his face is animated and everything. And the fact that Nick Cage just delivers lines without having delivering any kind of line. Like,
yes,
it's not like it's kind of like Chewbacca in a sense. Like they always say that like Chewbacca's lines are actually written in English so everyone can read what he's saying. But then he goes, the actor goes out there and does the Wookiee stuff. But it's like, I could almost imagine that you could definitely write a version of this screenplay where Nick Cage has the lines, but he's just delivering them with just body language. Because because there's definitely in his face and his body language, he's definitely like delivering some lines in the things that he's doing.
Absolutely. That look that he gives Tex and Jed at the end, when they hand him the keys and stuff, and just those looks, man, it's just a million words right there for sure. It was incredible. I thought he did such a good job. I never felt like I needed him to talk the whole time I was working on the film, which was a lot. I mean, I watched that film 10 times a day for months, you know what I mean? And it was I never felt like we were missing anything. It was he was just so good, man. He was really good.
So now things starting to open up, things are starting to loosen up. Do you have anything now on the horizon that you are working on?
I have a few scripts I'm looking at. I have a few things going right now. But I'm in the frame of mind where, the entertainment industry, there's so many moving parts and so many things that you can get a job, you can have a job, you can, you know what I mean? And things can fall through, things can look like they're the biggest, most exciting thing on the planet. A couple months later, they just drop off, and all that stuff. So I typically don't talk about any work I have until it's printed. You don't have the job until it's printed is my philosophy. So, but yeah, I am working on some other stuff, and I'm excited about it. Excited about a lot of it.
Well, right on, man. We'll tell everybody as they definitely, if you haven't yet, you can definitely check out Willy's Wonderland. You can also check out the soundtrack on any kind of like streaming music service. The whole thing completely composed by yourself, from singing voices to just the creepy score music. And it really is like one of those, it really is like a Killer's Clown vibe when
definitely
in listening to it. Like we've had John Misari on the show before and talked with him about his kind of vibe and style, what he was going for with that movie. And the two of you are very similar in the way that you describe the way that you kind of came up with the different ways to compose. So it definitely shows in the scores for each of these characters. Just like he had this, scores for each of the clowns.
Yeah.
But
I went to see the Killer Clowns to live orchestra in LA. I think it was 2 years ago. I actually went with Grant, and John Masari did the score. And what a masterpiece! I mean, honestly, what a masterpiece Killer Clowns was. He did such a great job. And when you actually get to hear it with the orchestra rather than on synth, you even get a more broad vision of the genius behind it. I mean, he just did an awesome job. It's really fun.
Right on, man. Well, tell everybody where they can kind of keep tabs on what you do have coming up.
Yeah, so I'm kind of new to social media, but my Twitter handle is at Emoi Music. My my Instagram is at Emoi Music, and that's basically how to keep tabs on what's going on. I'll post as new things come up, and all that kind of thing. Yeah.
Right on. Well, thank you for taking the time to be on the show.
Thank you so much, Jimmy.
We will definitely be keeping tabs and making sure we keep track of what you got coming out next.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.